Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Facebook Live Lessons from the Front. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, especially here in the Dallas area. I am Todd Boeding. I'm your host of Lessons from the Front, and I have got some unbelievably fun guys. Well, I don't know if fun is the right way to put it, but I got some really good guys here who have been a big part of Carry the Load for a long time, and we're talking about 10 years. So first up, Charles Meacham. He has many talents. I'll let him tell you about those talents, but he is, again, he's been with us from the beginning, one of the really good guys. Aaron White, former Marine, the only other Marine in the crew. Sorry, guys, I had to throw that out there. And of course, Brad, the Esquire Adatto. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, great to be
Thanks
here.
for having us.
Absolutely. So, today started off pretty early for a lot of people, especially within Carry the Load. And Charles, if I'm not mistaken, you were out at the original scene of the crime at White Rock Lake. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's great to see everybody out there bright and early for the sunrise. Yeah, we were doing the kickoff for the 10-year anniversary, and it was great getting together with a number of different people and just remembering those days 10 years ago, how things got started.
So 10 years ago. And Aaron, were you able to make it out?
My Marine Corps days getting up early are over. I wasn't able to. There was a time that I could get up at 5 a.m. and drive to White Rock Lake, but not anymore.
Oh, there was a time you would be there at 5 a.m. already ready to go.
That's right.
Brad, what about you? Were you able to make it out today?
Unfortunately, I was not.
Okay, so Charles is the only one without a job. I see where we're going there.
No, that's not true.
I know that. I'm just kidding. So Charles, you were there year one.
Yeah.
When you look at where we are versus year one, what are the top 2 or 3 things that come to mind, how it was then versus how it is now?
Oh, it's amazing where we've come from. I was sitting there talking with Stephen this morning, and it's funny. I just found an email from him dated December 16th of 2010. And it was just an email saying, hey, thanks for getting together. We had a lunch that day at Taco Diner and talking about this concept about Carry the Load. And, it's interesting. He and I were both Eagle Scouts. We were working on a real estate deal together at the time. But being Scouts, he was interested in getting some volunteer support for this thing that might happen. And as soon as he started talking about Carry the Load and trying to return the true meaning of Memorial Day and what the values represented, I was saying to him, hey, this thing may be a dream right now, but it could easily catch like wildfire and go across the U.S. I said, being involved in scouting I'm still involved in scouting, but at the time I was involved in Troop 496 in McKinney. I said, we can get people, and it would be an honor to marry up these activities, because it's all about service, sacrifice, duty to God and country, which is what scouting's all about. And, we had 14 scouts that first year, and I was saying to him this morning, we've had hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of scouts.
Yeah, 14 doesn't even unload the vehicles at the check-in point now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. We had a campsite that first year at White Rock Lake on top of Boy Scout Hill. We were setting up to support a first aid station that went that whole 20 hours and 11 minutes that first year. And I have some great memories of that event and that late night and the energy that those boys had and just the things that we saw And it was such a spark. It was such a spark for what came, these last 10 years.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You said that in that meeting with Stephen, that he said that this could really catch on like wildfire. And that to me is a pretty aggressive statement from Stephen. I mean, he's not one to make bold
No,
predictions.
That was my,
That was you.
just from, I'll tell you, he was telling me about this idea, and I thought it was so outstanding. I could see it happening across America because
I see.
I mean, it's something that people could gravitate to.
So, okay. So Aaron, I want to ask you, can you corroborate, were there actually 14 Boy Scouts?
That long
Let's
ago,
fact
I
check
don't
them right
remember-
now.
I don't remember counting the Boy Scouts, but I do remember them helping out. It was a pretty great day. I wish I was there this morning. I'm sorry I missed it. I did want to ask who had the oldest shirt, who had the oldest T-shirt.
Oh,
The
good
most
question.
Vintage Carry the Load shirt.
Well, we were all asked to bring our nostalgic attire. There are a lot of old shirts there, a lot of old hats too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know if anybody remembers. I was digging through some of this, and do you remember this shirt that said "Training for Carry the Load"?
Yeah, that doesn't.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
No,
Hold that up a little higher.
it's this shirt.
Oh,
Hang on
okay.
here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then it was "Training for," and then all the sponsors.
I've never seen that. That's
And
a
it's a
good
little
one.
different than the the event shirt that year was just plain on the back. It didn't say.
Yeah. The one that I have is just a plain gray one, and actually I wear it every year. I wear it because hardly anybody has it. So,
Yeah, I've seen you wear it at the event.
yeah.
But sorry, Todd.
No, go ahead.
Just kind of corroborate what Charles was saying earlier about going through the old emails. I was looking for pictures from year one and going back through and seeing these emails from Stephen back in 2011. At the end of 2011 for me is when I was kind of invited onto the Dallas board. It was really pretty funny to read through a lot of that stuff and see how, there were 7 or 8 people on that email, and now you can't even see how many people are on the emails. So it's been fun to watch it grow.
So if, for all of those out there on the staff, that's why I don't really read my email, because there's too many people on them now.
Takes a while to get to the message.
Hey,
Exactly.
do you all remember being at the committee meetings when we started talking about the T-shirts, and we started saying, hey, maybe if somebody, got involved enough, raised enough that we could, give them a special color, or
Yeah. The load carrier shirts.
Yeah.
That was that whole concept.
Yeah, I remember being at that meeting talking about that.
So, okay. So Aaron, you were there in year one. Charles, you were there in year one. Brad, you kind of filtered in around year two.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of the first points of order for you was, hey, we've got all these nonprofit partners that we're starting to look at. And I don't know if you stepped in and said, hey, we need to do a better job vetting this, or we need to at least vet them, or if you were kind of voluntold that that's what you were going to do. But that has been one of the big marks that you have made on Carry the Load, is your contribution to the organizational aspect of the nonprofit partners. How did you get involved in that part?
So I missed the first year, met Stephen actually on a camp out shortly thereafter. Our sons were in the Y together, Indian guides. And he was telling me all about the first year. And I said, look, you don't know me, because I didn't know him. I said, but both my family, a lot of my family members served. And I said, being part of nonprofits is something I've always done and always volunteered, and I enjoy that aspect. Let me help. So he gave me to Rebecca. And Rebecca, if you remember, was helping put all the event plan together. So my very first event was that first year at Rivershawn Park. I was on the phone calling people, asking them to donate. Hey, we need a fence. can you help donate the fence line, or we need equipment from Home Depot. So that was really my first introduction, was just dialing for dollars. And then after that event was when they said, hey, we have other stuff that we need somebody to kind of run with. And with, as you said, with my background, being an attorney, they thought maybe you should help kind of organize this a little bit better as far as how these nonprofits are brought on, and how we interact with those nonprofits. And I believe, if I remember correctly, Todd, one of the very first meetings, we had a lunch and you were at it, you, me, Stephen, and I think that was just it. We were just talking about how we deal with it, and just kind of, as you said, I got voluntold to kind of take it over, because it was always just Holly and Clint kind of doing it. And they really just kind of did it as they needed to do it. As you and I learned, it was here's all the paperwork, go figure it out from there.
So now, and you hadn't even been in Dallas all that long.
No, I was relatively new to Dallas, and I wanted to get more involved. And so this was an opportunity for me to get my, I was very active in a lot of nonprofits. I was from New Orleans and moved here because of Katrina. And then when I moved here, I didn't know anyone, and meeting Stephen, and then having a calling towards the military, have a calling for volunteering in general. This was an avenue that I just loved. I loved the spirit of it. I loved the loss that we had of my generation and many others forgetting what Memorial Day was about. And my kids who are older now, but were so young, it was such a great way of introducing them to Memorial Day. And I know that every one of us have said this now, that our kids have no idea what Memorial Day is like without being part of Carry the Load. So I love that for the last 9 years, it's been such a strong part of our life.
So Charles and Aaron, I want to hear from you. What is like your fondest number one memory of year one? I'll just leave it that open.
Charles, you go ahead.
Well, you know,
No. Charles, hold on. Aaron, you go.
Well, it's there are several, and what's funny is I think they were doing giveaways at the beginning of that event for the kids and stuff. They were giving away, I don't know if some toys were donated, but they had those marshmallow shooters. Do you remember that, Charles?
Yeah.
And I think
marshmallow. Like a
bow and arrow.
They were little guns that you could put the giant marshmallows in, and they would shoot the marshmallows. Well, it wasn't long ago that I think we found one in our closet that's been sitting in our toy closet for the last 10 years. But
don't eat those marshmallows.
There were so many great memories from year one, and then it continued to grow. But and I think everybody.
So wait a minute. Hold on. What I heard you say is your number one memory out of that whole thing was getting a marshmallow gun.
Marshmallow shooter. No. That's not. That was just that was a lead in.
Oh, okay.
We just found it the other day. But one of I think everybody remembers year one a little differently, just because it was so long ago and it's grown so much since then. But I got to spend a lot of time with my brother, and we walked with them. So one of my most fond memories of that year was watching Stephen with a 25 or 30 pound weight vest running for the first, I think what ended up being about 50 miles.
Okay.
He would pass us, every hour or so, every hour or two, he'd pass us running. Well, then we finally caught up to him, and this is midnight. He had been running since the event started, and he drops his weight vest and straps on an 80-pound pack and starts walking with us from there. And I remember, knowing that Marines were hard, but then seeing how hard-headed some of the SEALs are, and watching him do that was amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you used the words very, very well. There's hard, and then there's hard-headed.
Correct.
So very, very well. Charles, what about you, sir? What is your fondest memory of year one?
Well, first of all, just to finish off Aaron's story, I have a picture of Stephen from that first year on his last lap, that he's walking around with the weight vest with Molly beside him, and it's a classic. It's a terrific picture of it. anyways,
That's
would
awesome.
say, I have this picture, and it brings to mind the dead middle of the night. It's probably 2:33, something like that. And there is at White Rock Lake a hill, Boy Scout Hill, where scout troops used to go camp in the very old days. And it where this first aid station was atop that hill looks out right across where the bridge is that it aligns with Mockingbird, and it's the dead middle of the night. There's a light on at our aid station, and there's 8 or so boys that are just full of life. They're just, having a great time, smiling, and I'm on a chair in the middle of the trail looking toward that bridge, and you'd have these folks that would come. Usually it would be 1 or 2 at a time, uh, you know 10 or 15 minutes apart, and it was a really meaningful, that first sense of uh, awesome, tribute. And having, and I told this story this morning that you may remember it. There was a West Pointer and an Aggie cadet that were carrying a big, it was like a telephone pole, tree trunk, that just the 2 of them coming across. Later on, it was their families that were involved. And I'm telling you, it was the most inspirational thing I've ever seen in my life. And these boys were in awe. And there have been so many moments like that through the years. I remember the first time I saw it, for example, the guys with 22 kill with their face masks on, and these huge, guys carrying each other, and then coming into base camp and challenging the scouts to do 22 push-ups. And these big burly guys are jazzed when these little kids are pushing their arms off trying to get to 22, just so that they would get these applause from these huge guys. It was, those are times that these kids will never forget, ever.
And,
I don't forget them. But
yeah, and there's just a tremendous amount of intergenerational, collaboration, if you will. I mean, even if it's not collaboration in a spoken word, I mean, it's neat to hear about things like that. And I talked to Scott Rohrman on this program not too long ago, and he was talking about, a couple of things that involved his son. And it's fun to see the impact that one of the youth really has no formal concept around Memorial Day and what it really means, but yet when they just show up and they can feel it, and they all of a sudden know how to impact the whole thing like Scott's son did. And now we've got, all the storyboards and Reflection Ridge and, the mobile memorials throughout the relay. I mean, it's neat to see the impact that the youth have had on this as much as anything. And Charles, if I'm not mistaken, your son has been very involved himself since the very beginning. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have 2 boys that have been there from the beginning, and it has impacted them dramatically, as it has with so many of these scouts. As a matter of fact, I had introduced one of them, Brendan Corcoran, who actually did the calling of the posting of the colors.
Oh yes, no, Brendan's done a great job.
And he's a midshipman at the Naval Academy now.
That's right. He is in his junior year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another who did the calling before he did, who's now a naval officer on an aircraft carrier somewhere around the world. We have another one that's you know, a United States Marine. I mean, it has had an amazing ripple effect.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Brad, you showed up year 2, and as a result, Aaron said, "Hey, we're going to need a chow hall," and so he started putting the chow hall together. But and I do actually want to come back to that, Aaron, in a minute, and I want to talk because that was a big task for you. But Brad, when you showed up in year 2, Charles was talking about, you know, seeing the telephone pole being carried between, you know, 2 men. Well, you know, actually, you know, 2 young men, as I heard. What was the craziest thing you saw out on the trail that year? Do you remember?
I remember it wasn't crazy. I was maybe about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I was walking back by myself, and I was getting close to the ice house. And as I was getting that way, there was this 10 or 15 police officers, all dressed in uniform, walking with this giant man named Clint Bruce. I don't know if you ever met him, but he's a big guy.
Seen him.
And so here he is, surrounded by police officers, heading out on a walk, and they're sitting there visiting. And for those who don't know, I'm about.
Did he have cuffs? Did he have cuffs on?
He was not cuffed. He was not
Okay.
cuffed. But I was sitting there thinking, I'm walking back in, and I'm about, you know, a little bit tall for a hobbit, and I'm walking in by myself, and this giant former Navy SEAL is surrounded by police officers. And I kept thinking, this does not seem right. Those guys should have been walking with me, because I probably need the protection, not this guy. But it was really cool. It was like, that was that year. I know, Aaron, you and I have talked about this before, about when you would start seeing people going out when you're coming back in, which was something that y'all have noted about. White Rock was so big, you never really had that piece. But as I'm coming back in, seeing those cops supporting Clint and Clint supporting them, it was really cool. And that was like that first opportunity I really could see that moment. And I was like, I had an aha, like, this is such a great opportunity. And from then on, it was always great to, I mean, I just always remember that moment of seeing that, you know, the military and the police coming together, that one spot, and it being for everyone. So I always loved that spot. I learned a lot that first year of everything I did wrong. I'm so not being a Marine or being a Boy Scout, I did a lot of things wrong, and I had to retrain for the next years. But I loved, and that was the other thing I learned. I love that lake.
Well, no, don't just gloss over that, because I know that there's a story there. You destroyed your feet, as I recall.
I did. I destroyed every aspect of my body that first year, because I had the wrong shoes, the wrong socks, the wrong equipment. You name wrong, I did it. And which is great, which is the funny thing, is it got me into running half marathons and training differently, so that the next year when I did it, I actually did a much better job. But and then I will say something, you know, not being a Boy Scout or a Marine, but just being a regular civilian, what I loved about Carry the Load was an opportunity for us to really have an impact of showing how much we cared about our military and our first responders. And that was something I think that I never knew how to interact with individuals who served. And that was just purely, hey, just stand next to them and walk with them, and then start a conversation, because they're out there humping, thinking about someone they lost. And if they want to talk, they will. And that's what I love about that trail, about especially the later nights where you can be out there with them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, just to kind of chime in on, you know, I remember the very first year I was out there, which was year 3, I believe. I'm looking around going, that guy's carrying a keg of beer on his back. I'm gonna stick next to that guy. And then it started getting really hot, and I started looking at another guy coming the other direction. He's got an air conditioning unit. Well, let's go stand next to that guy. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it didn't work, so it was all a big ruse. But so anyway, during that time, Aaron is putting together the chow hall, and you know, which has become a big deal, really. I mean, it's become you laid the groundwork for it.
That's why all the scouts are coming now. I mean, they love the chow hall.
That's right. It exponentially grew after Aaron started the chow hall. So, you know, how did that whole thing come about?
So in meetings leading up to year 2, I'll never forget that meeting, sitting in office down there with Stephen and Rebecca and all of them. And they said, well, Aaron's a restaurant guy, so naturally, let's put him in charge of the mess hall. So I said, all right, how many people am I feeding? I don't know, somewhere between 1 and 5,000. Okay. How many times do I have to feed them? 3 times throughout the event. So basically a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or dinner, late night snack, and breakfast. And then the next question was, all right, what's my budget? And they said, 0. so here's my, my walking orders are feeding between 1 and 5,000 people with no money 3 times in a 20-hour period. So that was
this in the Bible.
Yeah, that it was well, that's really when I started praying was, okay, I know I can make this happen. I just don't know how. So for those of you
what
that
could
do
go
know,
wrong?
Right. For those of you that do know Clint Bruce and you've heard him speak before, you know that it's tough to keep people's eyes dry when Clint is in the room talking, So I brought him to one of my food vendors, and we sat down, and sure enough, we left with a 53-foot truck load of donated food. So that made it a little easier. But through this mess hall process and the growing of that process, it got a little smoother, and we got some great help in there, and Amy St. Peter came in and really helped run things. But there
she
are
brought
always
donuts.
Yes, there are always fun stories around the mess hall, and one of them was I don't know if you remember this, but I can't remember what year it was. I would get bread donated from a local baker, and they would bring hoagie rolls, thousands of hoagie rolls. Well, one year there was a badminton tournament at the Rivershawn little convention center with thousands of people. And so the bread vendor brought and dropped the bread off at the building and not into the event. So come to find out, I'm looking for the bread, and they said, no, we dropped it off. Well, I go into that building. They were giving it away as door prizes for the badminton tournament. So
I've never heard this.
Yes. So here I am with no bread to make sandwiches for, this was year 4 or 5. So there were, 10,000 people there, and that I was going to have to feed at some point. So I remember walking into that building, and I walked right into the badminton tournament and grabbed the announcer's microphone and said, if you have my bread, I want it back right now. And I've got baskets down there, so bring all the bread back. Well, a lot of them didn't speak English. And so I spent the next 2 hours walking through the bleachers, taking bags of bread out of people's hands. And we got a bulk of it back, but it was a struggle. And that's my most memorable mess hall moment. Aside from the fact that all of the sandwich meat that same year came frozen. So it's time to start feeding people, and it's just all the sandwich meat is rock solid. So we had to put it on smokers and all kinds of stuff to get it thawed out so we could make sandwiches. That year was rough in the mess hall.
Golly, that's just it's so typical. Not that happens to us at every turn, but putting on events like this when it's an all volunteer force for the most part. Obviously, Lear and Michael and their group,
Mm-hmm.
are on the payroll, but other than that, it's an all volunteer operation. And so when you look at some of the things we've done and overcome like that, and then I did start remembering back to that, I think that was like the 4th or 5th year. It's amazing more things like that didn't happen. So, but I got to tell you, I mean, Aaron, what you did in that mess hall and how it's progressed to right now, where we've got the, it's being operated by nonprofit partners, and which really leads to is a good segue. All of you have had participation in the nonprofit partner committee. Brad, obviously, you've been very instrumental in getting it off the ground. Although I think you've skated the last few years, but that's okay. We're not going to we're not going to dwell on that. But, Charles, what you see now happening in the nonprofit partner committees, describe what, if somebody comes in and they're sitting there for the first time, what are they going to see or what are they going to hear throughout this process? All these different, people that are applying to be a nonprofit partner.
Yeah. And first of all, just real quick, back to your point about the volunteers. That's one thing about Carry the Load. We have such amazing volunteers, people that are just showing commitment, dedication. You ask about, and I know you feel the same way, Brad, about the committee that gets involved and does the research and goes out and interviews and meets all of these people and vets all of these different organizations. It just is so heartwarming every year. Everybody is so involved and their hearts are really into it. But to your question, we do talk with a lot of different organizations, and it is something that is, again, it hits me here because the impact that Carry the Load has through our not-for-profit partners just goes on and on and on. We talk about the programs for Carry the Load. So we do have the awareness. It's all about returning the true meaning of Memorial Day. Still, we do have our education, which we can go there and talk about that in a little bit, maybe with Carry the Flag. But our continuum of care through our not-for-profit partners is so broad and so impactful. And we could talk about and get into all of these different organizations and talk the rest of the night.
Yeah.
You come in on a committee like this and sit down and you start going through this. And first of all, you're amazed at how broad, how many different organizations do this sort of thing. And each one has a different facet. It might be about, working on the mental side with our soldiers, sailors, first responders that are having such difficult times under the stress and pressure that they've had. It might be those that we had Boots to Heels as an organization, that helps female veterans, go from being in the military to becoming civilians again. You've got, Patriot Paws, that provide service dogs, and they train these dogs for 2 years to help so many different people that get these dogs. It's so broad, and we've raised almost $30 million, $29 million over the course of 10 years, and the impact that Carry the Load has had is just amazing. It just ripples on and on.
Yeah, it's really hard to place a value, beyond the dollars of the impact that the efforts of the team have made. And there's two things that stick out to me personally. One, you kind of touched on, and that's the breadth of the different organizations. I mean, homeless veterans, female specific veterans, they face a challenge that's very different than the male counterparts, especially transitioning out. The other thing though, and I give Brad a lot of credit, obviously the entire committee, but one year I remember we called some consultants in and we said, tell us how we're doing. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And they came in and they looked at everything and they, that's what we wanted. We wanted them to vet our choices further to make sure that our process made sense and so forth. And they came in, they said, you don't need us. You're doing everything we would be doing for you. And you appear to be doing it just as well, if not better. And again, this is an all volunteer team. So Brad, I do want to give you that credit and tip my hat. I mean, what you started, we really, have carried forward, and there's been a lot of great stuff that's come out of it.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to the couple of different things being, number one is it's such a passion of when you get involved with these nonprofits and learning about, again, being a civilian, I was dumb enough to think that the government was doing a good job of taking care of our first responders and our military when they got out and transitioned to another thing. And I learned so much from these organizations about what was not happening. And so you start going through I think my last year I was in charge, I think we had 77 different nonprofits that we were reviewing who had submitted information to us. And that's excluding the ones that missed the cutoff that we would still do calls with and learn more about them. So I learned so much about these different organizations, and there's so many phenomenal organizations who have incredible heart and are on that front line, helping our first responders and veterans, and being able to see their passion. And it made me want to work so much harder to bring the right people in. And more importantly, it made me want to raise fund and walk that much further or do that much more for the organization as a whole. And I remember like how hard we would work and how as a team, as a committee, we would be so burned out by the time we would vet everybody, finish all the calls. We would talk 2 or 3 months worth of our time that we were spending vetting an organization, getting them on board, walking them, and then introducing them, having that summit. It was a lot. But I still remember the day in which we got to meet with them and learn with how they thought Carry the Load went. And more importantly, the day we gave them their check. And that reinvigorated me year after year after year, because it was such a passion moment of saying, hey, this is worth all that time and energy that we put into it. And I loved it. But for the fact that, doing it for 7 years straight, being the point guy, I knew that I was so close to all these other nonprofits that I was probably too biased at that point, that it's good to have new fresh blood come in there. And I know that Charles is doing it now, and we have some good people, but I was so glad to be there in the beginning, and obviously not going anywhere. But I love what these organizations do. And I jokingly say, Carry the Load, we have one mission really. And it's a simple mission, right? It's to bring awareness. And I know Debbie and Todd would probably beat me over the head, but in reality, we do a lot. But these organizations are at 365, 7 days a week, taking care of our veterans and first responders. They have it hard. And for us to have such a pure mission, being able to bring awareness for obviously Carry the Load, but for them on top of it is huge. 22 Kills a perfect example of an organization that we got to partner with, and look how great they've become in such a short period of time.
Right. And just to give credit as well, Amber Wheelock has done a terrific job the last couple of years. She has taken the process and talk about the passion, has really done a terrific job the last couple of years. Taking the baton from you, Brad.
I tricked her. I said, hey, Amber, you and I see each other all the time out there, and I know how you have a passion for this. Why don't we have lunch? And little did she know I was planning 2 years ahead of time of having her take over.
I can't believe you're admitting all of this live. I'm scared
You're
of
not
her.
supposed to say that on camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, Amber it was great because again, she came in and just crushed it. And I'm so pleased that to have not to know her, but more importantly for her to take over the nonprofits and partners and really take it to the next level. And obviously, Charles, you and I were always on the committee together too at a certain time, but I completely agree. Amber did an amazing job taking over it when she was running it.
Right.
Well, we're going to get to the end of this. Unfortunately, I could talk with this group. We kind of referred to ourselves at one point as kind of the old guard. A lot of the original OG, Old Guard, Original Gangsters. Yeah, something like that. And there's so many that, that I'm hoping to talk to as we go. And, but before Chris is going to try and throw up a video here in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to hear from you guys, since we're on the heels of on the doorstep of the 10th anniversary of the Carry the Load Memorial March. I want to hear, whether it's your first year, last year, whatever, when someone asks you about Carry the Load, how do you describe Memorial March, the event, to them?
Go ahead.
Not everybody at once. Don't overrun me here.
Well, I can tell you how I had younger kids, and I know, Todd, you've heard me talk about this before, but I always talk about understanding the loss and Carry the Load, the actual Memorial March. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it. So unfortunately, it seems like the best way to experience it is to participate. But I always, when my kids were younger, explaining death to a child is nearly impossible. And so you're trying to tell them, hey, we're out there honoring those who lost something that's so special to them. So I said, tell me what's the most special thing that if you lost, you would be so upset. And they're like, young enough, they're like, stuffies. If I lost my stuffy animal, I'll be really upset. I said, right. That's, their biggest loss to them was a stuffed animal. So I made them put it in a backpack and carry that with them to understand what loss meant to them. Because I had to, put it in a child's mind and said, that's what these people feel, but they lost their loved ones and they're carrying them with them because it's important for us to honor them and carry, to move forward by carrying that with them. And so that's where it started. And, going back to the very first year, I had them draw up something. So my wife was kind enough to find something, but like my daughter carried for the police and K9, and we had it laminated on her backpack with their little stuffy animal. And my son, hopefully you guys don't be offended, he carried for the U.S. Army. Each year they would come up with who they were caring for, but it all started with just understanding that burden of loss. And then I think, Todd, you and I have talked about this, and then the celebration of life that came with it. Mm-hmm. And that it's a way in which we, again, the civilians who did not participate can participate and honor those who did serve and then gave us the ultimate sacrifice.
Awesome. Aaron, what about you?
For me, I'm going to bounce around here a little bit, but I've had to change the way that I have described the event to people. It's something that I'm so passionate about, and it's really easy to ramble on about. But years ago, my kids, like Brad said, all my kids know of Memorial Day is Carry the Load. So they haven't really had any Memorial Days without Carry the Load in their lives. Mm-hmm. And so my son, when he was 8, was interviewed by WFAA, and he was 8 years old and had walked 23 miles at that time. And so when they turned to me, I said, this is it's a day to restore the true meaning of Memorial Day. Over the years, Memorial Day has morphed into mattress sales and swimming pool parties and hot dogs. Well, I didn't realize that was going to offend so many people. So the comments on that WFAA video where somebody needs to call CPS for making his kid walk 23 miles and
then go to school.
And then go to school. And what's wrong with eating hot dogs and having swimming pool parties on Memorial Day? So I've had to reformat my explanation and when I used to say all of the hot dogs and stuff like that, that's fine, do that. But really, Todd, you helped me with a speech at one point that really called to order that it's us from the Saving Private Ryan part that I think about all the time, which at the end of the movie, when he says, earn this, earn it. For me, I explain it to people by saying, this is us earning it. This is us carrying that load for those veterans who can't carry it for us anymore. And it's an incredibly moving event, and it's just an honor to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Charles, what about you?
It's interesting. if you would have asked me that in year 2, I probably would describe it very different than it is today. I mean, to me now, you have to say, first of all, it's a culmination of a walk across America. You know, we've got 4 relays now that converge on Dallas as that starts and ignites the weekend of Memorial Day weekend. And you have an opportunity to come here and recognize the sacrifice that's been made on our part from so many people. I mean, and it's not, yes, we absolutely have soldiers, sailors, first responders that are on the line today. But, you know, there are those that, you know, last decade, you know, back in all the various wars and dates that have sacrificed for us to get where we are today. And it's an opportunity to now honor and think back about how we got here and who sacrificed for us. And it's meaningful for those scouts. You know, we start out the weekend by putting out our field of flags.
Oh yeah.
The Meachum.
So powerful.
And it takes hours and hours and hours and a lot of blisters on your thumbs. And what we say is every flag you put in that ground represents the life of somebody who gave their all so that we can be here, so we can enjoy our freedoms. And you know, that's the right way to start that Memorial Day weekend.
So true. So true, man. Powerful words, gentlemen. Carissa, are we going to be able to play that video?
We sure can, but you guys can talk through it. I think it's just photos.
Okay, great. So we can just kind of, so your mics are hot, gentlemen, as the pictures go through.
Well, I was a little excited to hear what everybody's favorite moment from the 10-year culmination has been. And if it's okay, I'll kick that off.
Yeah.
So it's you know, we talked about our favorite time from year 1, but really, as this thing has grown, there's been so many incredible moments. And Todd, you've heard this story, and so sorry you have to hear it again. But I was given the great honor to head up the Vietnam commemoration, the 50th anniversary of Vietnam War, and honoring all of the living Vietnam era veterans. So anyone
Right.
that served in the military from 1955 to 1975. Well, at one of those events, I would give a speech and we would pin these veterans. And so it still gives me goosebumps to this day. But I in my speech, I mentioned some of the different battles through Vietnam. And at the end of one of these pinning ceremonies, I had a gentleman come up to me and I believe Stephen Holly at the time, and started talking about one of those battles that I mentioned in my speech. And hearing him giving us details and speaking of it so vividly, it was like we were there, you know, just hearing him talk about it and tear up. Well, we gave him a hug, and this was 15, 20 minutes that he talked to us. We gave him a hug and he walked away. And about 2 minutes later, his wife came up and said, "I've been married to him for 35 years. And that's the very first time I've ever heard him talk about the Vietnam War." And so it was one of those things that was, you know, it gives me goosebumps to this day. But to see an event like Carry the Load open someone's heart and realize that, you know, this poor man has been living his life thinking either that nobody wanted to hear it or that that there was maybe no one worthy of hearing his stories. And then he realized after this event that there are so many people there that do love him and care about him and care about what he did and what he brought to this nation, that he felt comfortable enough to walk up to a couple of strangers and tell us those stories. And again, that was one of my favorite moments, aside from the fact that my wife and I were married on Memorial Day. So my wife and I celebrate our anniversary at Carry the Load every year.
God, and you know what? We've got another good friend of the program whose twins were born. Josh Lewis, his twins were born on Memorial Day.
That just means he had to miss one of the events.
No, I think he actually he went straight from the trail to the hospital.
My sweet wife just deals with, and I'm sure she wants to go on trips on her anniversary and things like that, but she knows, as my kids do, that Memorial Day is Carry the Load. Yes. and it's us doing our part.
Mm-hmm. As y'all were talking about that, I have to kind of chime in. A very good friend of Carry the Load, who is the undersecretary for Memorial Affairs for the VA, Randy Reeves. I remember, and I know this wasn't his, but he was the first one I heard talking about it. And he talked about the importance of organizations and movements like Carry the Load, because, and I guess it's an old Jewish proverb where we all die two deaths. The first one was when the final breath leaves our body. The second one being when no one talks about us anymore, when no one remembers us anymore, when our name is no longer mentioned anymore. And to me, that has always been one of the more powerful things I've learned through Carry the Load, and why I think this organization and this event is so important and powerful, because we don't let those people die a second death. And, whether it be through the stories you hear on the trail or through the storyboards on Reflection Ridge, all I try to tell people is you have to come out. There's nothing that I can tell you that's going to help you understand what it is until you experience it. And, for everyone out there watching who maybe has thought about coming to the event, but they just haven't quite made it yet, I would tell you, come out there for 2 hours and just walk up and down Katy Trail once, and you will never, ever miss it again.
Yeah.
And if you do, you will certainly remember wherever you are that next year.
Yep.
So, hey, gents, we're, again, we could go on and on forever, and I'd love to. We're probably overdue for an old guard gathering. But I just want to say to the three of you, thank you for the paths that you laid, the bricks that you put down for many of us to follow in this organization. Y'all have meant more to the organization, the butterfly effect, the ripple effect. We'll never know. And I just want to say thank you very much to each of you for all you've done for us.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Todd.
So
thank you.
For everybody else, hopefully you're watching across America on this one. We appreciate you being here. Before too long, we're going to be doing this again. So as always, the one final thing that we want you to take away, always, always, always remember to have a very good answer to this question. Who are you carrying?